Well, I've got two brilliant women tonight and a biological boy as well. Comedian Sajeela Kershi, political commentator Jason Reed, and NHS GP broadcaster and columnist Dr. Renée Hoenderkamp. Perhaps, Renée, I could start with you, as you are a medical professional. Is it possible to define what a woman is?
So, hello, Mark. Having gone to medical school, yes. I mean, it's very clear. We are taught that a biological woman is a child that is born with two X chromosomes, a vagina, a cervix, a womb, and all of those things. A man is obviously born, a boy is born with an XY chromosome. Now, there are some very unusual anomalies in between those two things that do exist, which are not quite so clear-cut, but they are vanishingly rare. And 99.9% of the time, we know the moment a child enters this world and takes their first scream, whether they are a boy or a girl. So for me, from a medical and biological perspective, it's very easy to define. What somebody chooses to live as, their gender identity, is entirely different, and I support anyone who chooses to live however they want, whether it's a rabbit going down that rabbit hole or whether it's a man who wants to live as a woman. That's fine, and we should support those people, and as you say, give them our love and respect. But in terms of being a woman, I am one.
Sajeela, would you struggle in a radio or TV interview to define a woman in the way that two significant figures in Labour's shadow cabinet struggled to this week?
You know, I think what it is people are scared. Like, in a working environment, your employer has a duty to let you know if the terms and conditions of your employment change. And yet no one sent me the memo. Have they sent you the memo, Renée? Because no one sent me the memo about how we're suddenly erasing womanhood.
Yeah.
And I think, well, as you say, the nation's been, the world's been gaslit to sort of not accept what being a woman is. I mean, should I call myself a woman? Am I a woman? Am I better? I better not say that I am a woman that's got a cervix that's menstruating, because someone might be offended. And let me make myself absolutely clear, because obviously, you know, I'm all pro-trans rights. I think that's really important, but the law does protect them. But this erosion of women, I do find really problematic. And in the words of another wonderful woman, I want to say that I am a woman phenomenally, and phenomenally woman I am.
Well, I've spoken to female colleagues today, Sajeela, who have said actually this is being sort of rather exaggerated, that actually it's a kind of very introspective debate, and it's not real, that really we're imagining this great erosion of womanhood.
We're not having a debate. So, yeah, the debate has been imagined. Is that what you mean?
Well, is it real? You know, are women being erased?
No, it's not.
Some challenge that idea.
If one group's set of rights means that another group's rights are being eroded, then that's a problem. And I think we haven't had that before. And I just think I was getting sucked up into that. Like, I better not say this, I better not say that. But we better say something. We better talk out. We better speak out. We better say, look, this is wrong. You know, we are women. We cannot go around changing the language of what defines us just because it might offend others. But if they're offended, why are they offended? That's what I want to ask. And you've just pointed out a few trans women who have said that they're not upset by this. So you've got to look at, it's the, it's the activists that are speaking on their behalf. But they have so much power because people are scared. Like in the Labour Party, I don't think there's anything malicious going on. I just think they genuinely are scared to say anything, too frightened to speak out in case they offend people. You know, everybody gets offended these days.
Jason, have you worked out what your gender is? I'm happy to give you the once-over.
I'm afraid I find this kind of discourse really depressing. I thought we'd moved past this point. Trans women are women and trans men are men, and that's not a difficult thing to understand. Trans people, especially young trans people, suffer from mental health issues, from depression. They commit self-harm and suicide at much, much higher rates than cisgender people as a direct result of this kind of alienation, of the denigration of people's identities. It's just completely unnecessary.
So how do we resolve this issue, Jason? Because it feels like we're at war at the moment.
We're at war for standing up for people's identities. It's really not very difficult for the rest of us who are cisgender to make the smallest changes in our lives, things like stating pronouns, for example, that make a huge amount of difference. to people who identify with a different gender to the one they were born with. I don't see how the two statements you made in your monologue square when you say that you support trans people and people's right to transition, but you also insist on a material definition of the word woman. But those things don't square together. It's the wrong question to be asking.
Well, I think if somebody that was born biologically male, if they rape somebody, I don't think they should be a she.
Well, of course, there are cases like in prisons where you have to think very carefully about where you put people. But associating, when we're discussing trans issues, and the first instinct is to go to what about rapists? Trans people are not rapists, and this is a common thing of trying to associate trans people or gender non-conforming people with sexual assault, trying to villainize.
But it happens. We have that story. Teesside woman exposes her penis in park. I'm sorry, Jason, but with that headline, we've lost the plot.
But who are you to say, Mark, that who are you to decide what someone else's gender is remotely? We're very privileged as cisgender people to be able to sit here and discuss these issues in this way. Of course, nobody should be assaulting anyone else or harassing anyone else, no matter what their gender. That's a completely separate debate to be having, but that doesn't undermine trans people's identities.
But Jason, isn't the point that if you were born Stephen and you want to be Stephanie, that we embrace that, we acknowledge it, you are Stephanie. But what we don't do is just state that you are a biological woman, because you're not.
I think that you're assigning something to trans people that isn't really taking place. No one is actually trying to deny biology. No one is saying that just by stating that fact, I am a woman, that I've changed physical things about myself. Of course not. But if somebody identifies as a woman and they want to use she, her pronouns, we should make every accommodation to be able to make their life a little bit easier.
I don't think we've got a big disagreement, Jason, because where you're coming from is about acknowledging a trans woman's right, total and very, very profound human right to be acknowledged as a woman. Something I would do enthusiastically. I would congratulate that person. As I've said, I've got friends that have transitioned, and it's an important and joyous journey. Perhaps it's got parallels with somebody that comes out as gay. It's not a life choice, it's who you are, and that's applauded too. But we're just talking about changing the world to accommodate people that wish to be treated in every single aspect of life as a female, and that's not always going to be possible.
Can I just say something?
Renée.
Here? Yeah. I mean, I respect what you're saying, Jason. However, there's a complete dichotomy with what you're saying and what's actually happening, because you say that we can't tell people what they must be and how they must identify, but you are now telling me that I am a cis woman, and I'm not. I'm a woman. I'm not a cis woman, but you're telling me that that's what I am now. And this is what I get told on social media if I speak up about this. And actually, I am worried about how we're changing the world. I'm more than happy to embrace everybody's right to be what they are. But I have a 3-year-old daughter. I've been very sporty in my life. I fear that there will be no sport for her to compete in when she's 15, 16, because as more and more men who are now women take part in sport, the competition will be gone, because women cannot compete against women who used to be men. So we do have to discuss this, and we do have to find a way for everybody to live side by side without changing the rules for the people that are already there. You can't champion the rights of one group by raising the other, and that's what we're doing. And calling me a cis woman is doing that, and I'm not. I'm sorry, I'm not a cis woman. I'm a woman.
Yeah, I don't really want, just for the record, if anybody wants to take note of it, I don't want to be called cis either. It was just woman will do. An intersectional woman, hot potato. So I've gone through every ism going. And so I think for me, it's really important. I wish you were there to fight for me, Jason, for my rights, for various things, disabilities, women of colour, all sorts of things. And I don't think it's really helpful when we have this conversation. It's always down to, oh, you're anti-trans. And that is absolutely not true. That's what J.K. Rowling, she is not anti-trans, she's not transphobic. I don't know show me where she's been transphobic.
Well, actually,
we're not being transphobic now. We're just stating facts. And that it's okay to have those rights, sit alongside. I agree with you, Renée, completely.
If anybody had actually read J.K. Rowling's original essay, it was actually very supportive of trans people. It wasn't anti-trans. But she's trying to make a point that we are here too, and we can't just be erased. And that's what's happening. And I fear for the future of women and for my daughter.
Renée, what's the solution? Do we simply categorise men trans men, women and trans women. Is that the answer?
I think it might be. I think we have sports, you know, in the future whereby we have categories for people who are trans, and then they're competing on an equal playing field. Now, they may not want to stand out from the crowd, but I also may want to win a swimming race. And I used to be a swimmer, and I think I would just down tools now if I were these swimmers in America. But I've been told that they can't do that because they'll lose their scholarships and their education. So they are being threatened. They're being told to be quiet. And they're actually, from that point of view, being bullied into submission.
Well, I'm worried about the first biological woman that dies in a boxing ring or in a rugby match at the hands of a trans woman. The bottom line is, briefly, if you will, Jason, Robert Winston, renowned scientist, said, you just cannot change biological sex. That is actually a statement that will get you cancelled in some quarters, and that's not right, is it?
Nobody, however much it might be convenient to believe it for the narrative, nobody is denying science or biology, but making the tiniest accommodations like using the word cis. Cis or cisgender is just a descriptive term that means not trans. It's not an insult. And if we have this kind of snowflakery where we can't even use simple descriptive terms like that, then we have no hope of ever accommodating trans people in society. And
what a great debate. And this show is all about opinions. Very grateful to my panel. But let's move swiftly on. French President Emmanuel Macron has announced he's pushing back the official retirement age in France to 65 from 62. Of course, France is not the only country to make changes to its pension age. Last year, our own Chancellor Rishi Sunak lifted the state pension age to 66. But we know that, given the fact that we've had a huge recession, that is just going to go up and up and up, isn't it? So is the age of early retirement over? And are governments just going to keep moving the goalposts? Jason, what do you think?
I think it's right that we have this kind of change coming through, especially in a system like France, where there's a very, very generous pension system, and it's very easy for a government to just kick the can down the road and say, well, the next generation can pay for it, the young people can foot the bill, we don't need to worry about it, I'll make sure I still have the older generation's vote and keep the generous pension scheme in place. And so Macron, perhaps a bit of a risky move in a run-up to an election to do this, but I think in policy terms it makes sense.
But what about those people that have worked hard all their life and they thought they were going to sort of, you know, have a break at 60, 65, and they do find that it just keeps being moved further into the distance?
It's very frustrating, but at the same time, I'm 21 years old, and I think if we have this system which is overly generous to pensioners, and by the time I get up there to that age, then goodness knows what the pension age will be. It might be 2 or 3 decades higher up.
21.
Balance there. Somehow.
Look at that wise head on young shoulders. Feels so old, Renée.
Me too.
He could be my son.
Well, I nearly choked when he told me in the break that he was 21, and I have a son who's 33.
It's absolutely astonishing, isn't it? Well, you must have had plastic surgery or something,
Why,
Renée.
thank you.
Something's going on. You know what? You're a GP. You've been sort of giving yourself Botox, haven't you?
Absolutely.
I mean, Tara, what about certain factors in relation to brain health? Can we talk about alcohol, please?
You asked me about this last time, Mark. There's definitely
I'm
a
obsessed.
theme here.
And I hope that you're going to tell me what I want to hear, which is it's really good for the brain.
It's not really good for the brain. It's technically a neurotoxin. So things like stress and alcohol do actually damage brain cells. But I think what I said to you last time, I'm pretty sure what I said to you last time was everything in moderation. You know, if you really enjoy it and you're sharing that with someone and you're sharing laughter, then there are such good effects of that in terms of the bonding hormone oxytocin and the mood hormone and just that shared laughter that induces good emotions like love and joy and excitement, that there are benefits to that. But, you know, I can't say to you, Mark, that alcohol is really good for you.
No, I mean, does it damage the brain or is it a temporary insult?
It's both.
Oh, dear. Jason, bad news. Jason, do you like a glass of wine?
I do. I'm afraid this is bad news that I think I speak on behalf of most GB News viewers that I'm afraid we won't be taking that too much to heart. Or maybe we'll take part of what you said, Tara, the second half, where you said that actually alcohol can have social benefits. Then we'll just hope and keep our fingers crossed that they outweigh the other benefits as well. We can cling on to oxytocin as being a justification for having that extra glass of wine and then not think too hard about it after
But
that.
Jason, you're 21, you're our only hope. In this whole panel, you're the only one with any brain cells left.
Goodness me. You're treading very dangerous ground saying things like that, Mark.
Yeah, you'll have to go teetotal. What do you think about this, Jason?
I agree entirely with what Sajeela was saying, that if you want to be selfish and prioritise your own career and your own life, you have every right to do that. But I think there is an issue, especially with my generation, with young people who perhaps want to have kids, but don't feel that they can because of this eco-socialist narrative that we're somehow poisoning the environment, or that we're, by consuming more and creating more people, that's a bad thing. I just think it's completely back to front thinking, because the more people we have in the world, the more brains we will have to come up with the next, carbon sequestration technology to suck carbon dioxide out of the air, or the new green technology for a clean way of creating energy and so on. More people is always better for society because it means more growth and more intelligence.
Well, that would be a great chat-up line in a nightclub, wouldn't it? Which is, let's make another Elon Musk, darling.
Here's my surrogate.
Or Bill Gates? Not so much. I know, and I think, it's obviously a fascinating conversation about, whether people have children or not. The only thing I would ask you, Jason, is for this lady, because we've been obviously, perhaps quite critical of her decision. I mean, not her freedom to have that operation, but we think that it's premature. But maybe it's a bit like a drinker that's maybe an alcoholic, and they just decide, that's it, I'm going to be a non-drinker, I'm a teetotaler. And making that decision, having that closure, it really lets them get on with their lives. Maybe that's what this woman has done. She wanted closure, a full stop, a guarantee that she's not having kids.
And she's entirely within her rights to do that, but I think it's a very bold decision. I struggle to think of what's going to happen in the next few months, let alone the next few decades.
Right,
make a decision
things change.
now. Exactly.
Yeah, this young woman, she could break up with that guy and meet someone like Jason Reed, and then everything changes.
Plus, a child is your future pension plan.
Well, I might go home and make some more then, in that case. Could do with a bit of financial help. Really helps. Any issues with passwords? Have you got? I was told by a security expert that the password should be a sentence, such as "I like biscuits 99." So it shouldn't just be, like one word or even a made-up word.
Well, I think the intent of the study was to make us all a little bit more worried and a little bit more conscious about our passwords. But same as you, Renée, I had the exact opposite reaction, because it told me that my password would take 200,000 years for a system to crack, so I'd feel much more secure.
Yeah, but your information would be worth that effort, I've got to say.
Do you think it would?
Yeah.